Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Autocar Business Changemakers podcast in association with Tomorrow's Journey. I'm joined in the studio today by Chris Kirby, CEO of Tomorrow's Journey, and Oxana Grishina, who is Head of Future Retail and Transformation at Hyundai UK.
Hi Oxana, good to have you on the episode. As we always start with, we just want to understand a bit about our guests' background, what brought them here today, and kind of areas of passion and interest in the sector, and it'd be good to kind of hear your story, really.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It's really good to talk to you guys. And so I'm Oxana Grishina. I'm head of Future Retail and Transformation at Hyundai Motor UK. I joined Hyundai in last year, so kind of relatively new, but there is a lot going on, definitely. Obviously, I'm responsible for some of the digital projects in the space of retail transformation, so working with dealers, or we call them retailers today. And on another side, I'm also responsible for Mocean brand, Mocean subscription. This is the mobility startup Hyundai, driven by our European colleagues. I'm responsible for car subscription strategies in the UK. And that's actually exciting area of automotive industry that I'm really interested in. And on another side, I'm really passionate about sustainable mobility, which is, I call it accessible, affordable, and environmentally friendly mobility. And in my role in Hyundai, I'm trying to promote obviously more use of electric vehicles, but on another side, as a volunteer I'm volunteering as a trustee of Community Transport Association, so I'm passionate about accessibility of transport for disabled and elderly people. That's kind of me, so I'm really happy to talk with you about automotive industry and what's going on.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a place to start, I guess, if maybe we start with the higher level macro kind of question, really, and just really interested to get your thoughts on what the trends are, current trends, coming trends in the auto space, and maybe we'll start to drill down on some things from there.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think obviously there is a lot. There are a lot of conversations going on about automotive, how automotive industry is evolving. Personally, I started looking into future of automotive in 2013 in my role of global retail strategy at Jaguar Land Rover. At that time, ACES, I was on autonomous driving, connectivity in the cars, electrification and shared mobility. Very little bit of buzzwords, but also kind of really exciting trends that started happening in automotive. And research and development department, strategy departments looked at those trends and trying to conceptualize new products and services and impact on automotive and OEMs business models. But now, 10 years forward, I think everyone is talking about it. Everyone is impacted in automotive industry, all the stakeholders, including retailers. And I think, from my perspective, the most impactful trend for the retailer side, if we talk about automotive retail, is the electrification. Majority of OEMs now, fully involved, fully developing electrification strategy, obviously to reduce CO2 emissions, but this is also part of the bigger sustainability strategies for the corporate companies. And the electrification is now progressing very well. So if we think since in the last 7 years, the amount of electric vehicles on the market, global market, now increased up to 10%. There was an acceleration, significant acceleration. We expect that growth to double by 2030. And the UK market particularly is one of the largest European markets from the electric vehicle, distribution perspective. So in 2021 we had more than 11% market share for battery electric vehicles only, and this year SMMT reported increase of that market share up to 13%. So even if macroeconomic challenges around the war in Ukraine, or rising cost of living, or chip shortages. We had the COVID pandemic, had everything in the past 2 years, but in reality the electrification is progressing steadily. Yeah, that's kind of, I think, that in terms of what is relevant to our conversation today, electrification for me is the most important trend.
Is it fair to say maybe that Hyundai has emerged as a front runner in electrification terms, not just in the UK but Europe-wide, and perhaps even globally? How do you think it's achieved that position, and how will it stay on top? What can you do to help it stay on top?
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. Hyundai is heavily investing into development of electric vehicles, fully electric vehicles. Since then, there's a lot of investments going into specific product platforms that would accommodate electric vehicles. And now we see all electric Kona, and new Kona has been launched. It's exciting. It's really exciting product. Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, and we're also expecting a lot of new exciting products coming in the next few years. Obviously, I can guarantee that these will be exciting ones. But I would say we, as the OEM, we have to be conscious that all others investing into electrification as well, so it kind of keeps us on fit in terms of research and development, and helps us to focus on electrification, continue investment in research and development. And so from my perspective, I think how I contribute to this journey, it's by promoting, I think, the two sides to it. By promoting personally use of electric vehicles. So my household's got 2 electric vehicles. Kind of a little bit now, we have to change the way we use vehicles. How we plan our trips, family trips. So that's kind of gives a little bit of change on that side. And on professionally, through Mocean subscription, for example, we're trying to promote more electric vehicles, or offering electric vehicles on a short-term contract where the customer can subscribe for a short term, try to live with electric vehicle, see whether this vehicle can fit into their lifestyle, and then potentially go to the retail network and purchase the car. So we had some cases like this. Customers will subscribe for 3 months and then go back and say, yes, I am going to buy one.
That's fascinating how you're using Mocean as a driver potentially to the retail side of the business. That sort of clicked into a lot of what we've heard about how car subscription can work alongside traditional retail models.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple of things on that. I actually wanted to go back one point, actually, just an interesting thing about the kind of positioning of the brand and through electrification. I was really fortunate in 2019. We had a presentation to some other startups from your global innovation director, came from Korea. Part of his presentation said, the change to electrification will basically turn the whole kind of the level of where brands are positioned on its head. And I kind of went, oh, that's really interesting. And then really since then I've seen that happen with Hyundai to move kind of from, I guess, being in that kind of middle with Ford area to then being able to sort of compete with the more premium brands. So I just thought it was interesting that they said it, and I went, oh, that's interesting. And then now it's actually happened. But yeah, sorry, going back to your point just now, Felix, I think definitely, and it's something we've talked about a lot before, is that bit of going, you need to get people to live with electric cars to aid conversion. So starting with a test drive driving around the block like you would do a normal car, like isn't enough. Can I get used to this?
Yes.
What's the experience? Extended test drives, but then an extended test drive moving into an extended use, paid use, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And maybe that you stay in a flexible place, because in other conversations we've had on this podcast about technology changing. Do you want to go into a car and then change it every 12 months because you want to keep the latest tech?
Yes.
Or do you then want to go, well, I've had one for 3 months, I've figured out the change in mindset to an electric car, and actually now I'm happy to commit for a longer term. And I think that combination of those things and the use of technology within it is really fascinating.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think the couple of points to pick up on, as you said, electrification will provide additional opportunities for product development as well. So if you see the Hyundai Ioniq 5 or Ioniq 6, the interior space of these vehicles is mind blowing. I mean, I've been particularly impressed by the livability of electric vehicles, especially from a Hyundai perspective. So that gives opportunities and let kind of attract more customers or different customer groups into your products. And in terms of kind of using different methods or to attract people or to let people to try electric vehicles, it's test drive, I think, is one of the really important elements in the customer journey or in the customer purchasing process, because test drive is the moment of truth, right? Customers now in the UK, we have customers, or we have people who have 84% of all population has access to internet. I mean, it's really probably the highest number across all European markets, and it means that the people have access to all information immediately. They can search about, understand about brands, products, services. But it's all kind of theoretical until they actually see the product, physically. So the test drive is really fundamental to confirm or disprove what they learned from the internet, from other people about your product. And so it's a physical moment. It's encounter with the product and the sales representative who are presenting the product, the test drive. But it's possible to digitalize, right? At least somehow this. And I just want to pay a tribute to you guys as the Tomorrow Journeys, because we, as in our partnership, we launched now. I call it pilot for a moment, but it's an exciting project, online test drive booking platform that allows to customers to be in control of how they book the test drive. So when, and where they can have that test drive, because they can choose immediately all the options that we can offer them. And this is all digital. This is all digital. And so yes, we see that we're moving now into digital space. This is the digital enables customer experience with the product, enables helps customer to test the product and to confirm their knowledge about the product.
It's definitely a behaviour change with electric vehicles, and I've been through my own change. I got an Ioniq 5 in December, so I've had it for 6 months or so now, and there's just things that you don't know. You still have people. I was talking to my friend this week, and he said, charging infrastructure just not there yet. And I said to him, I've only used a public charger once in the last 3 months. I have home charging, so it's fine. I've got 250-mile range, but I used the public charger one time. I think actually because my home charger wasn't working properly. So you can like debunk those myths yourself, but it kind of needs to go beyond the normal test drive, and that's, I guess, where Mocean also comes in. That maybe it goes beyond a test drive. You go, okay, right, I like this. This is fine. I think I can make this work, but I need to understand how it fits into my daily life. And I think a lot of users are finding that actually when you get to it, a lot of the things that people talk about being barriers are not barriers. So I think definitely the use of technology in that and the use of new products and business models is really, really interesting.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I suppose in a way it's not just about exposing customers to Hyundai products, it's about exposing customers to a new way of living with their, you could say it's their car, but I suppose it's not their car anymore. It's how they get around, but it's not their car. So in that sense, is Mocean playing quite a core role in what Hyundai's doing then?
So it's playing a fundamental role in the Hyundai mobility strategy. So obviously, Chris, you talked about one of the core strategies is electrification. Another core strategy is moving into mobility services, becoming a mobility service provider. Because we believe that mobility it's the way to enable our customers to move from A to B and to deliver the value, customer value. And it's proved successful in 2 markets, Spain and the UK, and now there is a plan to roll out to all other additional European markets.
And is that a thing coming into kind of customer experience as well? So another area I know that you're passionate about kind of the connecting, digitalization, and the experience itself, because I think that's kind of a key part. We talked about it in the context of test drive, but also the type of customers that are looking to change into electric vehicles and maybe looking for a different type of product, the way they access their car, maybe not so much or not so fixed to the kind of ownership or like finance-based model, and kind of want those elements of flexibility. And is that how you guys are seeing it through Mocean? Are you seeing the electric vehicles a kind of prominent part of the mix?
Yes, indeed, because when we started, car subscription customers, if you think they're different from the retail customers. There are different reasons why they actually want a flexible ownership. On one side is because there is low commitment in terms of, you don't have to put any deposit to have a car, and it's also peace of mind because everything is included. So this takes kind of some big pain points of car ownership away. On top of that, people who are interested in electric vehicles, they would say, yes, I'm going for the short term. I'll try live with this product and see how it works. All of this pain point has been already taken out of me. I'm just focusing on living with the product. So I think it's a good combination of customer value that subscription or Mocean subscription provides to our customers, because we give them time, we give customers time to live with the product, to test the product, and we take their pain points away in terms of servicing, insurance, and just taking care of anything the customer would need from the car or from Mocean.
And is that one of the key? Sorry, please. I was going to say, was that one of the key kind of learnings you've had about the customer experience, kind of benefits, I guess, of Mocean? So if you're kind of combining those two threads, really, the experience becomes one. It's kind of it's more digital, it's quicker, it's more flexible, but you've got that kind of peace of mind element as well. Is that kind of are there other learnings that you've had from Mocean in terms of the customer experience?
So the other learnings that the customer groups, for example, this is the younger customers who are interested in car subscription. I know there are a lot of research that looked into kind of on the general population. In general population, we would say that the younger customer groups would be more propense to go on subscription. We also know there is more female customers than kind of, well, at least with in comparison to Hyundai retail customer group. So we see more female, and this is definitely a song for my ears, because I would like to promote more female participation in mobility, also as a customer base. And we also know that the 3 major kind of reasons why customers go for subscription is all-inclusive. It's flexibility in terms of having short contracts or swaps. As Mocean, we offer swaps, car swap at every 6 months. It's a peace of mind that knowing that after 6 months you will be able to change in a different car, maybe because your lifestyle change, maybe because you have less, let's say, a disposal income. So it gives that peace of mind to customers. But also, our customers particularly valued that it's OEM program. So there is a confidence in the product that we're offering to our customers. So I think that's the plus. That's the advantage for OEMs to have Mocean car subscription product.
It's quite unique, I think. We've heard from some startups how they're approaching this change in retail. you're speaking from the viewpoint of an OEM that has a startup. So how do you? Well, we've talked about OEMs being almost like cruise ships. They're so big. They take a long time to turn because there's so much bureaucracy involved. Startups, by comparison, are more nimble, more agile, fewer people, fewer boxes to tick. How do you play to the benefits of both? How can you take each to your advantage?
Yeah, I think we need to kind of talk a little bit about Hyundai as a company. Hyundai is coming from humble origins, so it's been founded by a real entrepreneur, person who didn't have anything, and that entrepreneurship spirit been kind of taking through all the years of the development of the brand. And this is still exists in the brand, so it kind of a Hyundai innovation. It's embedded in everything that we do. So even core teams would be kind of prompted or asked or pushed or whatever word you would use here is to innovate, to create something new, and that's I think is the beneficial for this, to create some startup environment as well with Hyundai. So on another side, I would say Mocean, for example, is kind of as a hybrid. So we have a dedicated team, so the team that's kind of small and agile, that can operate quickly and also make decisions quicker. On another side, we have a support, which is the benefits of a bigger organization, have a supporting functions that kind of take some of the burden, administration burden or finance, etc. So it's actually a win-win, I would see it. So we don't have to fight against the bureaucracy because there is little bureaucracy. There is kind of a clear way of making decisions and quicker decisions.
And the dealer network is still involved in this program, as I understand it. So that's also, I guess, leveraging some of the OEM muscle, I suppose, in locations and that kind of operational support. How have you found that kind of transition, really, working with the dealers and the program? How have they embraced it?
Yeah, so the pilot, we launched the program with London retailers, and we see that having collection points on the ground that facilitates customer choice, either to collect free of charge or to have a home delivery for a certain fee. And customers can choose both of the options. Retailers, I think it was a little bit a change of mindset change for retailers as well, because it's we work with our partners on a fee basis. So we offer a fee for a collection, for a handover of the vehicles, and I think we're both learning. This relationship is evolving, and the retailers as well learning now importance of customer experience that needs to be delivered to Mocean customers, how that handover needs to happen, and any kind of operational issues that happen along the way can have a really big impact on end customer, and also on the reputation of the brand. So they feel that they're really responsible, they play a crucial part in delivering this good customer experience and building the reputation of Hyundai and Mocean brand as well. And they also feel that this is the future. So the conversation I have with retailers, it's a complementary channel, it's complementary revenue channel, but also complementary channel for kind of engaging people who would not actually consider to buy a vehicle, to become a part of a Hyundai brand. This is another way of bringing people into brand, and if they love our products, if they love our brand, they may decide actually to buy a car at some point in their life. So we've been on a journey with our retailers as well, So I think building confidence, that's the future.
Because the human touch is still so important, right? You can talk about how digital speeds up the process, you cut all the pain points, digital plays a huge role in that. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, what we're hearing is that end users still like to have that human contact to fall back on if there's a flat tyre or they want to come in and talk about a function of the car. So do you factor that in when you're planning your roadmap?
Oh yes, absolutely. For me, the personal touch kind of is very important. So handover of a vehicle is very important because this is the only actually physical touch when the customer gets the vehicle, gets the explanation of a product, and we need to make sure that this experience is very good, even better than they would receive it maybe in a dealership. So that's why we kind of trying to focus on training of our delivery partners and developing this. I mean, we're on a journey because it's a startup. We're kind of a lot of teething problems, but what we're trying to build this brand represented experience when the customer receives the car or customer hand over the car back, because this is the only differentiating point.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the thing we've talked about before is where we've been transitioning towards these types of models from loans into PCP and then into PCH, and we were talking on a previous podcast about the experience of a PCH is you kind of get a fleet experience in the personal world, and that's just not what consumers expect, and it's not what they expect today. But I mean, it's not what they expected 20 years ago, but it's not what they expect today, and that's one of the key points of difference when people are saying, what's the difference between subscription and leasing or subscription and rental? It is that it's the experience, and particularly around handover, digital upfront and handover.
And I had personal experience. I had subscribed to a car through a different company, and that element of handover was really disappointing because my car was just dropped in front of a car. I've got a key, and here you go. And then as a customer, you don't know what that kind of what I'm supposed to do if something's going wrong, how I am going to be taken care of, who I need to talk to. If there is something is not clear with a product, do I need to go to retailer? Do I need to go somewhere else? So it's really important to give that confidence and feeling of a confidence to the customer at the handover point, showing that care. And I think, reflecting of what I would like to have as the kind of as a differentiating mark for Mocean is to make our customers happy. Because we're talking about customer satisfaction. The customer satisfaction feels transactional. I ask you something, you gave me something. That's transactional. It's my satisfaction. I'm satisfied, but I'm not necessarily happy. And I think it's how we make our customers feel and how long this feeling lasts, then it's important.
And there's being satisfied and then there's being happy, and I think it's an interesting thing. I remember doing some research on rental once, so some consumer focus groups, and I was surprised that the consumer focus groups just went. They said no, we don't want a better rental experience, and I was like, oh, this is not what we were doing this focus group for. They went, we just know it's rubbish, so we just go there and we just prepare ourselves. It's going to be filling in a tax return when we go to the rental counter, and you're like, hang on a minute, and that the customer maybe they're satisfied in that transaction because it kind of meets their absolute lowest expectation, but that shouldn't be the benchmark for these kind of things. And it is that bit about the automotive industry is complex, but the customer doesn't understand that and frankly doesn't care. They want something seen. Why can't you tell me when you're going to deliver an hour slot when you deliver my car and turn up and do a proper handover? Oh, well, that's really complicated because of X, Y, Z. Well, customers don't care. Their expectations. So, I do think it's interesting at that point, and that's definitely where I think some of these newer business models are having are going to start to kind of cut their own path, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think retailers now also, I see obviously different kind of trends or different examples of how retailers trying to tackle these issues. Bigger groups maybe investing more into upskilling the sales force and how customers are treated, and obviously OEMs trying to create product genius, etc. And I think now we're almost like past that stage of only product genius. We need customer genius. I don't know how you call them, customer success managers who actually take care of customer and in tune with the customer needs and try to not only meet those needs but create the value for the customer. So I think this is what I would like to see from retailers, kind of to try to shift that mindset that it's not the only customer for sale, it's actually a person who has all the needs, the mobility needs, and different needs in terms of understanding a product, understanding charging options for EV, maybe to get more, have a little bit more conversation just to build that confidence, so that this would lead the customer to become happy and to be able to purchase the product. It's a journey. It's not going to happen in 5 minutes conversation. It's not transactional anymore.
That idea of happiness is, I rarely associate happiness with buying anything, because it's usually, as you say, it's usually transactional, and it's usually a case of satisfaction over happiness. What do you want from a digital platform that conveys happiness? It's hard to imagine, flicking through an app, even if it's a really quick process, and I achieve exactly what I want to do in a matter of minutes with this interface. Am I going to come away feeling happy? How do you make that part of the process?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, because obviously digital, we talk about AI, ChatGPT, etc. This is all kind of exciting, but all transactional, and it doesn't convey emotions, warmth. Right? But what we can convey to customer is the transparency, is we able to manage their expectation as much as we can, to tell things up front, kind of so that the customer by the end of the journey on the digital platform get to the journey and say, oof, actually you made me all to do all of these steps, and here I'm coming, and you're not accepting me, or kind of it's not the result that I was expected. This is kind of making customer unhappy. I think the digital need to avoid that. So the digital journey needs to be transparent, simple, managing customer expectations in terms of what they will receive at the end, and just fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the transactional thing is interesting as well, because I think that's definitely in the auto industry, in my 20 odd years doing it, that it's all about transaction. It's about sale and renewal. And I think one of the interesting things here is that we'll start to move to a thing about measuring churn, and that is then satisfaction becomes more important, because the bit of satisfaction up front, can I make you satisfied enough that you'll give me some money for this car? And then at the end of it you can go, can I present you with something that is satisfactory enough that you'll buy another one from me? And we don't do anything in between. Whereas actually, if you're in this situation where the flexibility is there, then you are managing the churn of the customer, so you're thinking about it the whole time. But then also, if you retain the customer, you don't have to do sale and renew, you just have a continual revenue forever, and that becomes a really fascinating mindset change in the industry, I think.
Yes, exactly. And this is a mindset from product to service.
Yeah.
If you go into hotels, the best hotels and hotel chains in the world, they are selling you not obviously experience, is that happiness. Because you can be in that world for 1 day, for 2 days, and you feel happy. And there are small things that kind of builds up to that happiness. So yeah, I think automotive industry is kind of on a journey, and I would like to see that more of that.
Yeah, it's about what the product enables as well, right? People don't buy a car because some people love cars, right? It's not right to say, but you buy a car because it's a thing you love to do. It's what it gives you is the thing. I think we get caught up so much going, the customer really wants to buy this car. They don't. They want the mobility that a car gives you, and if they didn't have to change it, maybe they would. If you could just always have the one that they want. So I do think that's definitely a bit of a kind of mindset change, I think.
Well, it probably helps Hyundai that they've got some pretty compelling products on sale at the moment. The EVs are very competitive. The combustion cars are pretty efficient and good to drive. So I guess in a way, it becomes almost a marketing tool in that sense as well, doesn't it? It's less you can call it a usership scheme, you can call it a facilitator, but it's also it plays massively to the strength of the products themselves as a facilitator of that contact, between customer and brand. One thing I did want to pick up on before we bring it to an end, you mentioned sustainability earlier. Now this is becoming it's not a buzzword anymore because it's at the core of most strategies, corporate strategies. How do you convey that to customers? Do they care about the value of sustainability if they're just in a car for a few months? Do they really care what the process was that went into it?
I think it's a good question because we kind of for a moment focused on electrification as the main driver for sustainability, and our Mocean customers, they are the big chunk or a big part of our customers. They only want electric vehicles, and that's kind of almost like unspoken way of saying that we're trying to promote sustainability. For me, sustainability is not only kind of environmental impact, but it's also social impact. It's also kind of all the different things that we can associate. And personally, I would like to promote more women going into electric vehicles. There is a lot kind of now information online going on that the women probably less want to buy a car because of lack of confidence how to use charging infrastructure, etc. I think that's what the plan is, to look into how we attract, how we explain better, how we present better the product, and we kind of take away other pain points, to not think about other pain points, but just focus on the product. That's what I would like.
It's definitely an interesting thing, the sustainability. I think the timing of when this podcast goes out, but there was an article written by Rowan Atkinson this weekend about electric vehicles, and I think it's been widely commented on, certainly in my social streams and stuff. And I think there's an interesting thing. Everyone's focused on electrification now, like get electric vehicles into the market. I've said for a long time they're not hugely accessible, as in they're aimed at high price point, and in that space, like typically lower mileage users. So it's not actually getting the benefit for the people that need them the most. But then you've also got the thing of like it's actually pushing just new. We're still on the new in the top, and like how I'm also interested in how these new business models will make vehicles be able to be used better, because actually electric vehicles just don't age. I tell loads of people this. When I got my Ioniq 5 from one of our customers, it took me 3 days to realise it was a year old. I thought it was new. I got it and I went, oh, it's great. Ioniq 5 is really nice. I kind of misread the number plate. It was 71, not 72. Right? I just kind of like didn't clock it driving along, and I went, and it ticked over 10,000 miles, and I went, 10,000 miles? I thought it was new, and because it just felt new, because there's like so less things to kind of age within it, so that we should get more like longevity out of them and things. But I think that's still the bit to come, right? We're just everyone's going right, get out of ICE vehicles into electric, but actually then there's like how do we get them into the right people's hands, and also how do we get them to get the most out of their usable life.
And this is through education, and we're going back to test drive. So we can use test drive, a variety of different kind of options of test drive we can offer to a customer to cater their needs, because we can have a customer who had already another electric car, they just need to test a vehicle and go, or we have a customer who actually interested in electric vehicle, never driven, don't know what to do in terms of charging infrastructure, for example. We need to dedicate more time to this customer, maybe to provide more unaccompanied time with the vehicle, so that customer will fall in love with the vehicle. I mean, I definitely fell in love with my electric vehicle, the first one. It was like, oh my God, it's I'm flying, I'm not driving, I'm flying. That's the feeling that I had. So, but you need the time to realize that. So Yeah, so this is another thing that we're promoting through the test drive program that we're running together with the Tomorrow Journeys, is that trying to promote more extended test drives, so giving options to customers to live with that vehicle for longer. And and they come back excited.
It's going to be really interesting over the next couple of years to watch that conversation go from conceptual, this is what it's like to drive an EV, to product focus, this is what it's like to drive our EV, and this is why our EV is better. So you'll probably have to think about, how that conversation will change shape, and people will be less concerned about infrastructure. Hopefully the infrastructure will take shape, but it'd be fascinating to watch how you manage that journey. Is it already underway? Are you thinking about how those conversations change?
Yes, yeah. I mean, obviously in parallel, the product knowledge is important, and clearly sales executive on the ground, they need to, and this is really important, they need to know how the electric vehicles work, obviously all the different functionalities and complexity of the technology, but how then our products compare to competition. And to be fair, I think Hyundai is in a really good position in terms of our comparison to even Tesla 3, etc. with the Unique 6. But the most important element is that the sales executives need to convey this confidence in terms of how to live with the EV. So what does it mean to charge at home? What does it mean to charge in public charging? What does it mean to charge it at highways? Even just knowing the prices, or even just comparing different speeds. So if it's a 100 kilowatt charger, so how long it would take you to charge, or it's a 350 kilowatt charger, how long it would take you to charge on your way somewhere from Midlands, from Birmingham to London. All of this conversation needs to happen, because this will give practical information to a customer. It's not about kilowatts, it's about 3 hours, 20 minutes, or whatever it means in terms of.
Yeah, and I really loved January for me this year. It was so fun. I had a new car, and 20 years in the automotive industry, now getting first electric car. I learned so much stuff, and obviously in the space I work with lots of companies like yourselves, and I've read lots of things, but you only learn stuff by doing it. I was like, oh right, so I'm plugging this to 150 kilowatt charger. Why is it only charging at 50 kilowatts? I was just -6 outside and it won't do it. Yeah. Oh right, okay, I didn't know that. And it's just things that you kind of have to get to grips with. But then you go, oh, actually it's fine, I can just plug it in, there's a Costa next door, right, I'm just going to have a coffee. Exactly. And it will charge in this time. So there's things that almost like you can't be taught, you just have to learn, because they're almost like unique to you and your own situation. So definitely having that time with a vehicle is really fascinating. I wanted to change the subject quickly because I know we're running close on time, but just a bit about kind of final bit, I guess, within your role is a bit about transformation, and we've talked a bit about Mocean and working with the dealers, but I'm just interested in kind of some of the learnings that you've had in implementing some of these projects, both actually the test drive program that we've worked on together, but also Mocean and some others, in how implementing something that's so different into a complex and often a bit archaic processes, and so it's interesting in any learnings and any things that you picked up from that, because that's the thing we're going to have to be tackling for the next 5 to 10 years across the board, really.
Yeah, I guess to implement some digital technology change in a way that things are doing is not really easy. And my approach and what I see it works, it's first of all kind of winning hearts and minds of people decision makers in retailers, so that they understand the value of that transformation that needs to happen, not only short term but actually strategic long term value. And those conversations and engagements are really important with the dealer principals, with head of franchise, with sales managers, just explaining just why we are doing it and what the benefits to both, not only OEM, but to retailers and customers. And I always want to start with the customer, because if the customer happy, they will kind of be, everyone will be happy, right? So that's, and the learning is that you need to communicate and engage and continuous engagement to keep retailers engage in those conversations, because it's very easy for them to slip back into this short-term thinking. Obviously, the objectives needs to be met every week. They have targets every month. They have targets. It's this trying to keep their attention on these transformational projects continuously. And also another learning is start small. So we're kind of trying to launch, obviously picture the vision, what it should look like. That's great, but then showing how we can change, starting doing something small and showing that actually works. So minimum viable product. I mean, we as a part of startup or innovation practices, minimum viable product solutions work very well, because you have something small and it still work. You can demonstrate that some benefits of it and build on that. Start building additional blocks and add value both to customers and the retailers. So this is how we launched our Tomorrow Journeys online test drive booking platform. Started small. With Ioniq 5 now is available for online booking. We kind of figure out few things that needs to be changed or needs to be improved, but then we'll build the strengths of that proposition and we'll show retailers that actually it works and it benefits to them as well. And we already have positive feedback from retailers.
More test drives, good feedback, good stories,
and more transparency. I think that's the whole principle, that we actually able to manage that transparency, that value of transparency of information, both to customer and to retailer, and that's the benefit for everyone. So that's kind of my learnings so far.
Still more to do across the industry in that transformation space, but it's interesting to see some early successes from your side. I think it's really fascinating.
Well, it's reassuring. I don't know about for you, Chris, but it's reassuring for me to hear that happiness and transparency can still play a role in the modern retail space. Thank you very much for sharing those insights with us. It's been really interesting to hear from you, and I'm fascinated to see how Mocean progresses and what happens in the Hyundai retail space. So thank you very much for joining me, both of you, and thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.